He's a two-time FLW Tour winner, has an incredible YouTube following, and in just a few short hours will kick off his second run at a Bassmaster Elite Series career. This week, Bradley Hallman joins me on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks. You're all welcome here at the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. Want to welcome in all our humpers that tune in week after week. Happy hump day to all of you. And it's a pretty special week, to be honest. I've been doing a lot of celebrating. Actually, a little too much. Definitely too much celebrating. And for those of you that are regular listeners, you know what I'm celebrating. But I'm not going to talk about that because there is a group of people that get their knickers in a knot when I talk about football on a fishing podcast. So I'm going to talk about that at the very end so that nobody has to get upset. But so if you want to hear what I have to say about the mighty Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl that was, final segment of the show. I mean, I'll calm down about it until then. But this is a huge week in the sport of fishing. This is, as we record this, or as you watch this, February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, but also the day before the Elite Series kicks off on Lake Okeechobee. So the Elite Series will be back in your life as of tomorrow morning, and I'm always looking forward to the kickoff of the Elite Series. And Okeechobee is one of those special bodies of water. But it's always cool to get everyone back together to finally kick off the season and meet all the new rookies and stuff like that. It's just it's a cool time of year. So I'm looking forward to that. And I hope you guys are too. Another huge announcement that happened this week. My dear friend and idol, KVD, Kevin Van Dam, announced at the end of this season he is leaving competitive fishing. He's retiring. And I can't stress how amazing what KVD has done in his career. Literally, he changed the sport on the water, off the water, in the boardroom, in the trade shows, just in every single facet. Not only does he dominate every category of records, but he also changed the way professional anglers do business, the way professional anglers are looked at. KVD, I mean, there's just not enough good things you can say. And it's weird. I mean, because I was lucky enough, Kevin called me before the announcement came out. And Kevin and Sherry, his wife, called me, and it was the most awkward, I'll be honest, the most awkward conversation I've ever had with them, because I just kept saying, wow. Like, I don't know why. Like, I mean, I wasn't shocked that the announcement came. I mean, I knew that Kevin had always said, I'm not going to fish late into my career. So I wasn't shocked. But it's just like you're shocked that that day is coming. And it was an honor to get the call. But I just feel like I was ill-prepared. I mean, it was Monday morning. I was recovering from winning something I had nothing to do with. I mean, I never got more congratulation messages from people. Congrats. The Chiefs don't even know who I am. But so they called me, and we had a nice little chat. But I feel awkward because all I just kept saying was, wow. And the mark that he's left on this industry is amazing. He's not going to go anywhere. You're going to see probably more of him online, on TV, everywhere. But he's not going to be competing anymore. And just to think that is again, wow. It's just shocking. But me and Kevin have already talked about doing another show together. We're going to do another podcast here coming up. So we'll get deep into his decision and what drove him this way and what his future is. And I'll ask some awkwardly honest questions like I always do. But most of all, congratulations, Kevin, Sherry, Jackson, Nicholas. You guys have given so much to this industry. And if anybody deserves a retirement, it's you. So thank you for everything that you have done. And hopefully by the time we do the podcast, I'll have collected more thoughts, more legible thoughts. I just feel like there's so much you want to say about him. It's like it gets bottlenecked in your brain. It comes, and then you're like, it's just too much. It's like when you're trying to chug a beer and you can't get out the hole, I guess. I don't know. This is also, like I said, the kickoff of the Bassmaster Elite Series. And this week's guest is not somebody that I know very well. And that's rare. Most of the time when somebody's on this show, it's somebody who I know really well. We know of each other, but we have not spent a lot of time together over the years. That's about to change because this week's guest, Bradley Hallman, is now an Elite Series pro once again. And if you are one of those people out there that, has tried to chase a dream in your life, took your shot and maybe didn't work out, and you think that's never going to happen again, Bradley Hallman was one of those guys. He literally talks about in this show that at one point he thought tournament fishing stole his soul. But through the support of his family and through incredible determination, he got back into tournament fishing. He started fishing the FLW Tour, won a couple of FLW Tour events. Actually, the kicker is the first FLW Tour event he won was on Lake Okeechobee, where he's kicking off the second run at his Bassmaster Elite Series career. He is rejuvenated. He is revitalized. He spent 3 years fishing the opens to get here. And I have a feeling that Bradley Hallman is going to make his mark on the Bassmaster Elite Series. Now, I will tell you, this was recorded previous to last weekend. So I'm sorry, I had to pre-record this because I'm in Florida, okay? I'd love to be with you guys, but it's just easier if we can get this recorded so you guys have got a show. I mean, I'm never going to leave you in the lurch. But I guess I should just bring in our guest. And before we go any further, the one and only two-time Bassmaster Elite Series qualifier, two-time FLW Tour winner, Bradley Hallman. Bradley Hallman, as we record this, or as this is being aired, it is the eve of your return to the Bassmaster Elite Series. What does that feel like?
Dude, I'm excited to be back. Like, I've told some people, it'll somewhat be kind of like a reunion because there's so many guys there that I'm friends with, where I started my professional fishing career. And, there's a lot of new faces as well. So there's a lot of people there that I don't know. But a lot of the guys I do know, and whether I fished with them before at the other tours or here, I'm excited about it. There's a few group of guys through the years that I hadn't actually fished against, like, whether I was at Bass and they were at FLW, or while I was at FLW, I was at Bass. And one of those in particular that I'm really looking forward to being able to fish with is Jason, because we grew up here in Oklahoma together, fishing against each other when we were young. And we've really never been on the same tour at the same time. When I was at Bass, he was over there. And then when I was over there, he was at Bass. And so that'll be pretty cool. Like I said, there's a handful of guys like that. And so I'm looking forward to that part for sure.
Can you help his relationship with Panger? I mean, I think Christie's fine, but Panger's not scared of anybody more than Jason Christie on earth. But at the same time, he's not just scared, but it's his hero too.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's any fixing this, Dave. No.
My first question is to you, though. You got a lot going right in your career from the outside right now. When I look at it, I mean, I think you've cracked the YouTube code and found a way that it works for you. Your relationship with BTL works for you. Like, there's a lot going right. What is driving you to return to the Elite Series?
Well, the other day when you called me to ask me to be on the show, you kind of scared me a little bit. And I actually thought a lot about what you said. You said, why would you want to go mess up a good thing? I hope I'm not thinking that 5 years from now, man, Mercer was right. Man, I've always been a tournament fisherman. I mean, that's what I am at heart. And, derbies are derbies, and I want to fish against the best competition, whether it was here in Oklahoma, even though I lived 3 hours away from Grand Lake when I was young. That's where most of the money and the competition went down in this state. So that's the pond that I spent the most time on and learned to compete on. I like chasing big things, and I've had a lot of kicks in the gut along the way. My road's definitely been a hard road. It's not been nothing like Jason Christie's, for example. I'm not one of those guys, and I know I'm not, and I'm not, I'm far enough along in my career. I'm not pretending that I'm going to come on and be Polinick or someone like that. But I have been fortunate enough through time that, the sun does shine on me from time to time. And when it shines pretty bright. And those are enough to get me through. I enjoy the day to day. I enjoy the camaraderie with the guys. I enjoy the competition. I really enjoy the time on the water. I enjoy the travel. I enjoy driving, even after all these years. I won't say that I enjoy seeing I-40 in Arkansas, because I've seen I-40 through Arkansas so many times. I'm a little sick of seeing that part. But once I get to Memphis, I don't care if we go north or south, it becomes interesting again.
So it's a lifestyle that you're sure, you want trophies, but ultimately it's the lifestyle you're chasing.
Yeah. It's what I've always wanted to do. I mean, just like all these guys that you've had on. And when I was young, I remember watching Bassmaster and Bob Cobb, and it was on Sunday mornings at the time on TuneIn. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
TuneIn. And it was on after church, and I loved watching it and dreamed about it. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to make that a reality one way or another. And it hasn't always been easy, but yeah.
How old were you when you think back to watching Bob Cobb and Bob Ray, all of those? That's what makes bass so strong. I think it's literally that it's not that the dream that is today, it's the dream that was planted in all of us, myself included, when we were kids sitting on our knees in front of a TV, looking up at this unbelievable world to us. How old do you remember being when the dream started for you?
I had to be around 10 or 11. I'm just looking at my kids and how old they are and what grade they're in, because I know I was in that 4th, 5th grade range, maybe up, and then was really into it by 6th grade. So, I would say 9 or 10 years old.
Do you have like tournaments that stand out to you that, this was the one that hooked me?
No, I don't have that. My dad, I grew up, so I kind of grew up in 2 different places. I had divorced parents, and my dad lived in East Tennessee, and that's actually where I was born, and it's actually where I graduated high school. But my mom lived in Norman, Oklahoma. And so I kind of went back and forth. And so I kind of had 2 childhoods in a way, if that makes sense. And East Tennessee was right on Watts Bar, and my dad liked to fish and obviously got me into it. But he was not a tournament fisherman. He it was anytime he was off work, we went fishing for whatever would bite, and most everything got a fillet, and I filleted to it if it was very substantial at all. But when I was 18, I came out here actually to Oklahoma to visit my mom, and I took a summer job with this plumbing company down in Goldsby, Oklahoma. And I swear to God, it was a summer job. That's all I was doing. And I left 13 years later. But
wow.
That group of men were tournament fishermen. And so that all started for me once I came to Oklahoma. So all of my tournament fishing and everything that I learned about truly bass fishing came from Oklahoma.
When in your mind, did the dream of like, man, I'd like to do this for a living, no matter how far-fetched, was that when you were a kid, or is it as you started getting a little older?
Dude, I remember this is crazy. I had this picture of Bill Dance that I'd cut out and I put in this frame that would it was kind of a curved frame. I mean, it was only about, it was a big frame, but it would sit by my bed. And that was in that, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I remember in high school, starting my freshman year, whoever my favorite teacher was, usually a female, I would talk to her. I'd be like, hey, why don't you put Bill on your desk this year? He's good luck. And they would let me. And it was always, I remember it was my English teacher as a freshman, and it was my English teacher as a senior. And I had Bill Dance sitting on her desk the entire year. But so I probably thought about it, but I didn't know the reality. And like I say, I didn't fish tournaments. I had no clue how to even start that, or what that looked like, or anything. And then I started going to school at the University of Oklahoma and was fishing and working. And I don't know, somewhere around 19 or 20, within a couple of years of being in Oklahoma, we went to, you remember how big the tackle shows used to be, right?
Yeah.
In February. Chuck Justice and a bunch of Oklahoma guys that are guides here in the state. They were up on the big tank, flipping and talking. And I remember coming home and telling my roommate at 20 years old, saying, dude, I know what the hell I want to do the rest of my life. And I'm serious. Like, that's it. That's what I want to do. And I didn't mean the talking part. I just wanted to be involved in the industry and the fishing part. And I knew that at a young age. I say 20 is a young age. God, we got guys on the Elite Series that young now, but it wasn't that way back in the 90s.
No. How, from an outsider's perspective, and I probably should be asking you this in, a month or two from now, how different do you think the Elite Series is now to when you left in 2011?
Well, it's going to be a lot different. I know that. The overall age is much younger than it was when I came in 2006 and left in 11. I know a lot of those guys, though, a lot of those young guys that came, they were over at FLW with me. So all the Johnston brothers, Gussie, all your Canadian brethren, I know all them. I've competed against them. I'm friends with them. Like I said, the thing right now that's really got my head spinning the most is the same thing that's got most of the guys that are on the Elite Series head spinning. It's in my same generation, and it's Livescope, right? I'm not going to lie about that. It's almost like if you're over 30, you can't be good at it. I should say 30, but definitely if you're over 40, you can't be good at it. And, that part's going to be different because I know how that's going to play out this year. It's going to be, we're going to go to tournaments. Y'all are going to be like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this, but the top three are all eye scoping, and y'all are going to be like, how? It's going to be a place where we're not expecting it, but I know that's coming.
Do you think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about Livescope? People think we can schedule around Livescope, but the more, you can't tiger proof a lake like they did in the PGA. The more people, they were using it in Florida last year. I mean, it plays everywhere now, doesn't it? For the most part,
it plays everywhere, and then it'll be conditional as well. So, like if we go to Okeechobee and it gets cold, you're going to see it big time. You may see it if it's warm and nice, but you're going to see it if it gets cold. You're going to see it heavily.
Obviously, it's a tool. Obviously, it's something that you're going to use. But overall, what is your take on it? What's the long-term effect on tournaments and the fisheries in general?
Well, I've been with Garmin for quite a while now, long time. So I've had it since it first, since we were able to get it. And with not Biosonics, what was the first one called? I always forget. Panoptics. And, I was kind of slow to it, like a lot of guys were. I'd had some conversations with some good friends of mine that had won big tournaments with it. And I was like, really? And they were like, yeah. I was like, And they were like, keeping it on the down low. And, I got to where to this day, I feel like I'm really, really good with it. The problem is that I have friends like John Suckup, and I go get in the boat with him, and it doesn't take me 10 minutes of being in the boat with him to realize, hey, you're not as good as you thought you were. He is incredible with it, like just mind blowing. I mean, if there's 10 levels to it, I'm on 5 or 6 and he's at 10. I mean, that's how the difference is. I mean, it is night and day. So that part is a little bit intimidating. What do I think it's going to do to change the sport? What I think could change, and this is what I see right now with the guys that are really good with it. When we get on some of these lakes, a lot of times there's only 2, has been in the past, 3 to 4 or 5 guys that are really all in on it. I think that number, you're going to see that continue to go up. And once you start getting 50, 60, 70% of the field going all in on that at the beginning of practice, and that's their focus, then those fish start taking that pressure. And it's not just us. So that's what everybody always thinks. Yeah. They always think, well, it's just the tournament guys while they're there. No. Suckup's a good example. He won the first MPFL of the year, the first MPFL that ever happened. He won at Livescope and brush piles at Lake Eufaula. When he left, guaranteed without a shadow of a doubt, there's 100 guys that you follow that were like, we're some of the best fishermen on this lake and we're going to figure this out because I've never seen this done. And he just crushed them. And they went and figured it out. So now these fish are getting daily educations on what that looks like to them. And so, you know, that combined with the fact that guys are just going to go all in on it all the time. The question that none of us know is where does it end? Like, is it going to be, you know, Okeechobee is a good example. Never really heard of anybody catching them out in the middle of that thing, and it's massive, and we all know they live out there. Is it going to get to where we can start catching them out in the very middle of something like that, you know, in open space?
Why don't they catch them in the middle of that lake? Like I've heard in the summer when it clears up, you know, you do get some out there, but it just amazes me that it's so giant and there's never been anyone like, I mean, I'm sure some people have caught fish there, but I've never, as long as I've been involved in bass, there's never been anyone that was anywhere near the top 10 and was out there.
Well, when I say not out there, I mean, there's shoals and stuff out there that they catch them off of in the summertime. Right. But there's just so much water, dude. It goes forever and it's shallow enough that there could be fish throughout. So, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but they live out there. There's no doubt because they come to the bank in waves, you know, every spring. It's like a different wave comes in from the lake and it's obvious that they're fresh fish.
So when you say Sukup is that much better at it than you, what does he do better? What makes him better at it than you?
Well,
other than just the obvious time.
Number one, he sees what you don't see. That's number one. They see what you don't see and they see it a whole lot faster. They just catch it. It's the same thing as a trained eye of someone who's a really good sight fisherman. I mean, really good. And it's that trained eye of, you know, guys going down the bank and sight fishing and they're looking for this fish. But man, a lot of times that's not how it works. Sometimes it's just the nose of a fish sticking out from underneath the dock, just a little corner is all you catch. And you're like, ooh, if that's a big one too. I know it is. Cause like you only saw the beak, but it was a damn big beak. Or you just catch, you know, just a little end of the tail or maybe just a little dorsal fin. You just catch a glimpse of something to where you're like, and you come back and you're like, oh, see, and most people miss that and they keep going. He's the same way with Livescope. You know, he's fanning back and forth and I just keep fanning back and forth and I probably drive past 20 of them and he's seeing all 20. He's seeing them instantly, you know, and then the rate at which they can tell what that is much faster. They know which bait to present first. They've just spent a tremendous amount of time with it and their eyes are trained. And then that on top of I think the amount of water that they can cover efficiently fast with it, I think they can cover a lot more water than I can.
Why do you think that, and I've wondered this for a long time and I've got different theories on why, and I think the technology got better, but it amazes me that it didn't take off. You know, Panoptix has been out for a while before it really got hold. Why was it not instantly a success? Was it the best kept secret in fishing?
I don't know that it was the best kept secret because, like I said, I had it on my boat. But now you're talking to a guy that carried a Senko around for 5 years after it was invented, before I ever threw it, too. You know, once it came out. But I think the guys just didn't see the power in it. The crappie guys were definitely the first ones to come on board. You know, they saw it, and that's what Sukup is. You know, he came from that side of the industry, but they saw it first, and then I think that. Like when I started using it and was having success with it, was just in local jackpots here on Wednesday nights. I would take it out to Thunderbird and fish the Wednesday nighters with those guys. And I was just brush pile fishing with it. And it just allowed me to, you know, be able to, I could go out there on a Monday and just idle, mark everything with side imaging, come back on Wednesday night, not have fished any of it, and just literally just pull up and, you know, first cast. But I wasn't looking for the fish per se. Now I remember some of the nights we had good nights, I would see those balls floating around them and be like, dude, we probably gonna get bit here. But I never saw the fish like go down into the pile and you know what I mean? It wasn't like that, but there was definitely some guys that were on up there. I'm not going to mention their names, throw anybody under the bus, but there were some guys that had it figured out pretty quick.
So before we get into all this, I'm horrible at this job. I probably should have kept on our trend when we were talking about. So 20 years old, you start fishing tournaments. How does your career, give me the Reader's Digest version of how your tournament career progresses to today?
Dude, it's been the dirt road, really. Well, it has been, I mean, I qualify. Well, so it starts out at 20 and fishing with the guys that I worked with, in the little club that they had. And they fished basically smaller lakes down central and southern Oklahoma. But like I told you, the money and the best fishermen were up in northeastern Oklahoma at Grand. And that's where most of the tournaments were, the big tournaments. And so I started venturing off up there, and I had met some people. My wife had an uncle that lived up there, and so in Grove. And so basically I could live up there for free. So I would it got to where I was spending 3-4 days a week up there and trying to hold down a full-time job at home. I'd come home and work Monday through Wednesday or Thursday, and then go spend Thursday through or Friday through Sunday up there. And we would just fish team tournaments and pro-ams. And I mean, we had central pro-ams, we had BFLs, at that time we had all these team tournaments that would pay basically $20,000 or a boat every weekend almost,
Wow.
Once the spring started, because we had 3 or 4 huge team trail circuits, and these were 400 and 500 boat tournaments. And I've heard Jason talk about this a lot. It's like it's kind of what taught him. He felt like to win, because 3rd and 4th place just didn't pay very good. I mean, you basically had to win, and they were one-day tournaments. So, when you're fishing against 400 boats on Grand Lake, all of them locals, you better catch them pretty darn good if you're going to have a shot to win. And I agree with that, but they paid out a lot of places too. And we just get checks every week, and that progressed, and you get better and better, and you meet more and more people and become friends with a lot of the better fishermen locals there on the lake. And I don't know, somewhere in through there, I thought I wanted to fish the opens, and I had a pretty good base at home, wasn't like a Jason Christie base, but I was catching them pretty good, I mean, I was cashing checks about anything that we fished here at the house in the state of Oklahoma. But 05 fished my first year of the opens. And then at the end of it, they announced that they were going to do that Elite Series deal.
Yeah.
Right? And so a bunch of the guys like Larry Nixon and all that bunch, they were like, we're not paying $55,000 in entry fees. Y'all are crazy, And so they all left, and it left this big hole. And so while I didn't finish in the top 5 in the points in the opens that year, I was in the teens, or I don't know, somewhere in there. They worked down the list back in those days. It's not like now. And anyway, I got in, and there wasn't the same knowledge publicly shared and thrown around and known back then like there is now. So like, first time I went to Gunnersville was in May, 1st of May, and there's a shad spawn going on. Well, I know I'm getting bit on the river ledge, but I don't understand that it's a shad spawn. I mean, I don't know. I just know that if you throw a spinnerbait up there, you catch one. But kind of behind the 8 ball on that, the blueback herring deal. Oh my God. We went to Clark's Hill. I had no idea what that was. That was, by the time I left, I still didn't understand it. It was like striper fishing to me almost, the way that those fish related on the bluebacks. I joke around that it took me 5 years to learn how to spell blueback. That's probably true. But the learning curve was large, needless to say. And I don't know, there was like 20 something people in my rookie class that year. There was a lot because there had been so many guys leave.
Yeah.
And there was 100 of us or 109 of us, I think, something like that the first year. And I don't know, I finished in the top 5 in the rookie of the year deal. We had Steve Kennedy in it, which was basically like, having to fish against Van Dam as a rookie. That wasn't really fair, but that's how it worked back then.
Yeah.
And I think Kennedy won rookie of the year, and I don't know. We'd have to go back and look at that list somewhere.
Yeah, no, he did. I remember he won it that
It's
year.
a cool list to go back and look at, because there's a couple of Bassmaster Classic champions in that class, and there's 9 or 10 of us still fishing. So it was a good group of guys.
So you go through your Elite Series career, and I mean, you had some highlights, made some top 10s, but and it's funny because when we talked the other day, you're like, me and you passed, like my first season on the Elite Series, the MC was your last season fishing the Elite Series. So we didn't get to know each other at all. Like, I mean, we probably have already talked now more between that phone call now than we did that entire season.
I was joking with you. I said our minds were in two different places. Like by 2011, and this was for a lot of reasons, Mercer, and you'll get this. I've told this story a bunch, I feel like, but by 2011, I'd figured out I was never going to be Kevin Van Dam. It was pretty obvious. The writing was on the wall. When I started in 2006, my wife and I just had one baby at the house, just been born. By 2011, I had three. My father had passed away in 2009. Yeah, 2009. I fished pretty strong from 06 all the way through 9. And then, like I said, I lived in Oklahoma. We lived 1,000 miles away. I mean, it wasn't like we were talked on the phone every day or anything like that. But dude, it had a big impact on my life. It had a big impact on my life, not only just me and him, but with my relationship with my children and sponsor money and all that. Like, I mean, I wasn't even making enough sponsor money to pay even half of my entry fee. So I had to cash enough checks to be able to pay this bill that I was creating. Well, when you're putting that much work into doing that, like you're not gonna, I couldn't come out in the positive hardly for the family, you know, and I've got a wife and 3 babies at home, and it wasn't working. And I was mad. You know, when you chase a dream and it doesn't work, you can be very jaded about it. I was mad at Bass. I was mad at people that worked at Bass. I was mad at guys that I've competed against. I was mad at the media guys. I was mad at everybody, but a lot of it was my own fault. But I kept all that internal. I never said anything to anybody. That's one thing I've tried to do my entire career. I don't burn bridges. I just kept my mouth shut, put my head down. When I signed up for 2011, I was pretty well done whenever I paid my deposits. But I thought, no, we're going to give it one more try. And, you know, I'm going to finish the year no matter what. That's going to happen. But, dude, I remember in 2011, when your first year there, on day 2, if I didn't have enough to get a check, I just throw them back. I mean, guys don't do that on our level.
No,
they don't do that on this level. I remember doing it at Lake Murray. I did it 3 times that year. I just throw them back, like, the hell with it. I'm just ready to go home. I'll go load up my stuff. I want to be home. I remember having tournaments where I remember one tournament at Champlain, I'd made the last day, the top 10. And I drove, they call boat numbers, and I go out. I drive forever to this magic dock that I've got. And I caught the big bass. I mean, every big fish I basically had caught for 3 days come off this dock. And I drive to this dock, and I get there, and there's a family there, husband and wife, grandparents, the kids, all the little kids, the Labradors. And it's not a very big dock. You know how stuff is up north. It's not like these giant marinas.
Yeah.
And they're throwing this toy off the end of this dock, and this Labrador's, you know, into the water. So you're like, well, hell, you know, I drove all this way, and the dock's trash for the day. I don't even want to be here. Like, what am I doing here? I should be doing what that guy's doing. I should be with my family at home. I should be having the picnic with, you know, the in-laws and the outlaws. And this is stupid. You know, this. And so let me tell you, when your mind starts going down that road, your competing level is gone. It's out the window. Dude, I should have been happy, and I was miserable. And I remember that. And I came home, and I told my wife, I said, I'll never fish again. Like, I don't want to fish team stuff. I want to sell the boat. It's all the tackle. I'm done. You know, I want to figure out something else to do in life, but this is not it. And she was like, pump the brake. She's like, look, I get it's been bad. She said, park the truck and boat in the garage. Just shut the door. I don't care if you don't open it for 2 years, but don't sell everything to shit. And that's basically what I did. I stuck it in the garage for a year. So
never went.
No, hell no. I had no interest in going. I started a bunch of house projects. Like, I didn't even know what I was wanting to do the rest of my life. So I came home, and I built, she would want a swimming pool. So I built a swimming pool. I had to have a new patio out back. So I was like, I'm going to build this huge outdoor kitchen. And then I want to build this hand laid sidewalk that comes from the driveway around. So, dude, for 6 months, I mean, it's just me out there. And I'm doing all this hand laid pavers, stacking block, plumbing, kitchen, roof. I mean, bad to the bone stuff. And dude, I built an outdoor kitchen you don't see on $5 and $8 million homes. Granite countertops, you know. I mean, it was bad to the bone. You turn on the music, and there were some nights I found out there that by myself I'd made it too nice. But You enjoyed it a little too much, but yeah, it was nice. But that's kind of how I got my soul back, was just being by myself, working, nobody around, make my own mistakes, just get my mind off of everything. And then a good friend of mine, Jeff Miller, came to me and wanted to go have lunch, which wasn't uncommon. Jeff Miller has a son named Jared Miller. You remember Jared when Jared was in the Elite Series?
Yeah.
This was about that time when Jared was on the Elite Series. And Jeff had been fishing with Jared, his son, forever, team tournaments. Well, now Jared's gone. And so he was like, I've got this company, it's an oil and gas. We run title. It's a good gig. I've got these men in my office, been doing it 50 years. Come to work with me, for me, and they can train you. You'll be an independent contractor. You want to fish, you'll have some freedoms. And he lured me back in slowly. And then got me to fish some team stuff with him. And it all kind of started building back up 13, 14. And by 15, I was like, I want to go back and try something.
So that drive home from the last event, wherever it was, what did that feel like? Was that? It
was the best damn drive I'd ever had in my life.
That's what I wonder. Like, were you in tears the whole way, or were you just like freedom?
Freedom. I'm done. Like it's over. I've had enough of this.
I mean, it makes a lot more sense to me that we didn't talk that much, because
I didn't talk to a soul.
And I show up and I'm like, hey, it's the Elite Series.
Yeah. We were in total opposite places. And I knew that, and I respected, like where you would be and where I would be. I'm not talking to anybody. Zona had actually came to me at the Classic. Maybe last year, before last. I had done the MPFL broadcast with they brought me in. I filled in for Dudley.
Yeah.
And he had a tournament and overlap, and they called me and were like, you be interested in doing this? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. No problem. So anyway, after it was over, it was like a week or two after it was Classic, and Zona came up to me and he was like, dude, I got to apologize. I was like, what? And he's like, I didn't even know you could talk. And I was like, well, that's not all exactly your fault, So anyway, you weren't the only one.
So for a brief period of time, as you put it, tournament fishing stole your soul. Like it was that bad of an experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that
bring you to tears at night? It was bad. It was real bad. I remember we were at Toledo Bend in 11, and dude, I had them like figured out. I thought didn't go well. And my buddy Castledine, Todd, that lives over at Rayburn, came over to check on me. And at the time I was doing the camper thing, the truck camper, because I thought that might be better. I tried that for the last couple of years, and it was not a good deal for me. It lets my brain run. When that door closes, I do bad things to myself. But Todd, I'll never forget, Todd came in and he's like, dude, what is wrong with you? Like, it's just depressing sitting around here with you. Like something's wrong with you. And he was right. It was so bad that Rojas even told me later after the event, he was like, dude, he said, you were the one guy. He said, everywhere I had him in practice that I was worried about, you were always there. Always. He goes, I don't know how you didn't do better in the event. And I'm like, I know how I didn't do good in the event, but like I had it figured out, but then I didn't. I just couldn't keep it together. But like I said, I had a lot going on, and I think those 3 babies at home really changed my outlook on life. And like I say, it'd have been different if I'd have been Edwin or Kevin, or, if I'd have been doing really well and was creating a surplus of income to where I could be like, hey, honey, you need a new Suburban? We'll get it, But that wasn't the case. I felt like I was being a negative draw to my family, and I needed to be there in a positive way, not damn sure not in a negative way. So I think that took its toll on me.
So how much of that pain that you went through at that time will drive you at this time, or are the two totally disconnected?
No. I would say that that's what drove me on my FLW push for sure. I mean, like my very first FLW Tour tournament was on Okeechobee, and my very first day I took the lead, and then I led it for 4 days.
Yeah.
There was never a point. Like it was brought up, hey, this is your first tournament. Well, Yeah, it is, but it didn't. You know what I mean? That's how I felt inside. I didn't say that publicly, but like, this was nothing new for me. I wanted to get it done. And it was definitely a push, bent over, leftover frustration from the 6 years prior. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I say, it wasn't anybody personally. It was just for me personally, like what I could and couldn't achieve. And it's always been this way for me. Like I wanted to sign, I just wanted to sign up, fish the FLW in 15. I wanted to fish in 15. And for the history of that place, they've always just let people in if you pay your money for the most part, especially a guy spent 6 years on the Elite Series, for God's sake. Bill Taylor. Well, now I'd love to have you, Brad, but boy, what kind of boat are you running? So, well, I'm with Gary Klaus over at Phoenix. Well, now, if you get a Ranger, I might be able to find you a spot. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in an airport in Miami. We were about to fly to the Amazon River, Brazil. Yeah. And Tommy Biffle and I are sitting side by side. And Bill Taylor calls me and says, now, boy, I'm sorry, but I just couldn't get you in. You're gonna have to go through and qualify in 15 if you want to get in. And I'm thinking, I got to go qualify again. I was like, I don't even know what does that entail. And he said, well, you'll have to go fish our Toyota Coasters, whatever they were.
Yeah,
and you got to finish in the top 10 in the points in the division. So that started the all right, let's prove them wrong deal. And so I fished 2 divisions that year. In 15, won one up at Grand, finished second, another one. I was involved with all that 4 tournaments in a row for Ray Hanselman. Yeah, I was at every single one of those events and took that ass kicking from him. But needless to say, I'll never forget Texoma was the first one where it ended one of the divisions, and I was like 4th or 5th. And they send you that on a text, it's like 5th place. And I took that text and screenshot it, and I sent it straight to Bill Taylor, and I just said, I'll see you next year. So mad. But anyway, that's kind of the dirt road. Like I've kind of had to do that, and I'm used to that, and it's made me a better fisherman, no doubt. Made me stronger. And then the FLW thing, and dude, I really enjoyed it over there. I know that's not your deal. Talk about it. We're talking about a defunct tour here, though, right? So,
yeah, dude, you can talk about it. That's one of the weirdest things, because people get on this podcast and they're like, that other tour, you can MLF, FLW, it doesn't matter. There, you know what I mean? That's what got you here. So don't ever feel like that when you're talking to me.
Well, it was a different environment, like I knew it would be. It was different than Bass. It wasn't the media monster that Bass was. And quite frankly, we didn't have all the egos per se. And I'm not talking trash on anybody, but it was a little less, I don't even know how to explain that, but it was a little more laid back.
Yeah.
And there's a better mixture of men there, right? There's a lot of guys that just, work for a living and we're paying inch fees and fishing tournaments, and had been for 15, 20 years, some of them.
Yeah.
So a lot of good people. There was a lot of good people at Bass too. I'm not saying that, but it was a different environment, and I enjoyed it and I liked it. It was a little more laid back. I could still work. I was still working full time for Miller for the first 2 years, 16, 17, and 18. So for the first 3 years, I was still working a full-time job for Miller. And I think when I won my second one, I think that's when I was kind of like, all right, you really think you might want to do this full-time again for a living? Because I think, you might be able to do this. So I think that's when I really kind of started thinking harder about it and thinking about getting in the industry. Because that's something that I really honestly kind of missed, Dave, was like I said, when I was 20, I went to that tackle show and I wanted to be involved in everything. I wanted to be involved with bait companies, sales guys, industry, like deep. And that really hadn't happened for me. Like I knew all the fishermen, I was friends with all the best fishermen in the world. I stayed with them, ran around with them for years, but I wasn't involved in that marketing, sponsorship. I mean, I had a few, but it wasn't much,
Yeah.
And I didn't really have a platform for it. But somewhere around 18 is when I was like, okay, after I won that second one, like I've got a little platform here, so let's try to work off this. And then things were still going good. And then I guess I was one of the ostriches that had my head in the sand, apparently. Because then it leads to my next crossroads where I'm on the dirt road. I didn't realize that FLW was in financial bad shape. And I didn't realize, and I should have known, there were signs. I should have known that things were going to change. But, you know, the first group of guys leave and then they do their invites and they take 80 guys or whatever to their MLF. I wasn't included. I was never phone called. Dude, I've got some of my really good friends are owners in that deal, but I was never called or thought of. I don't know why.
Does that bother you?
At the time, a little
It
bit.
should, though.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Well,
yeah.
I just looked at the group that's invited and I'm looking at my credentials for my career and I'm looking at other guys and I'm like, you know, I'm not saying that I'm one of the top, but dude, there's 20 guys there that I could definitely argue. No problem. You know, 25 maybe.
Yeah.
And I've always been good to everybody. Like I'm friends with everyone. I've never had one confrontation on the water my entire life. Like not one.
Wow.
And all that fishing, I've never had a confrontation. I had Skeet jump on me one time, but it was his doing. It wasn't me. And that's another story in itself. We could talk about that. I think it was strategy on his part. He ended up winning the tournament. I think he was just trying to find some more fish on day 3 of the tournament, but and it worked because I told him right where the school was. But I've never had one, and I've always been fair to everybody. But yeah, it bothered me a little bit that at the time, like I was okay with it because I thought I still had the FLW gig. Right?
Yeah,
like, fine. That's just that many more checks that left that are available if they leave. But then it all kind of came crashing down later that fall, and they purchased, and then I had some decisions to make. And the other thing that had happened at the same time, a lot of the guys that were not picked by that group started politicking the other way. And I guarantee you were in on some of these meetings probably. Oh. There was probably a list of anglers. Okay, well, who could we possibly get if we invited them? Like who would be worth taking, right? And there were guys picked that had never fished a bass event that fished the Elite Series this day that came in on an invitation. And my name was never in that list either. Never missed. And I knew from a fisherman standpoint that not everybody at Bass understood who the fishermen were on the other side, because there were guys like Brian Schmidt that weren't on that list.
Yeah.
And I knew how damn good he was. I mean, this guy's won more Toyotas or Costas than anyone on the planet. I mean, he is the bad man on the East Coast. And he wasn't on that list. So I was like, they're looking at names and they're looking at, I don't know what all they're looking at, but that bothered me too. You know, like when it all happened, it didn't bother me because I thought I had a place and spot. So like I wasn't sending emails or politicking, but dude, I just got totally left out both sides. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. So then it was just kind of up to me. And so now I'm kind of back to the same road I was in when Bill Taylor calls me and says, well, now, boy, you're going to have to go qualify. So I bounced some things around and decided where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. There was a lot of reasons for me. You know, I kind of put it on a chalkboard, reasons to stay, reasons to leave. And for me at the time, I felt like that there was a lot of check marks on one side and the other, but one just outweighed the others. And the biggest ones for me were like, I had won at every level at FLW, you know, other than winning a Forest Wood Cup. And I'd won BFLs, I'd won Costas, I'd won tours. And I hadn't won anything at Bass, nothing, not an open, not any blue trophies, and dang sure not classics. So I have a hard time staying motivated the older I get, right? Like we're all guilty of that. We kind of get comfortable in what we're doing. And I felt like that alone would probably motivate me and drive me to get up and work harder every day, right? And it's driven me all the way to this point. And believe me, it was a long, hard road to get to stand on that stage come Okeechobee.
Yeah, it to me, it's that whole time. I think people, you know, it's easy for people in chat boards to throw things around about this guy or that. You know, that was one of the most emotionally draining times for everybody involved, and literally everyone was involved. You know what I mean? Whether they, you know, you're right. My phone, everybody's phone got real busy. All of a sudden, there was a bunch of people, you know, calling but it was just like nobody could feel like. Even the staff. I mean, why do you think Bass came out firing so hard when they came back? Because a group of people publicly said that, you know what I mean? Like going into that season, it was like, these guys aren't going to catch any fish. No crowds are going to show up.
Yeah.
And that obviously is a fear for everybody,
Yeah.
but I think from negative stuff like that, there's so much positive.
Mhm.
You're a prime example of it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it sucks to have to go requalify after you've done all this stuff. But that being said, it made you the person that you are today. And
Yeah,
just so you know,
I don't mean for it to sound like I'm crying at all.
No,
'Cause I'm
no.
not. I'm just being honest with my feelings.
Yeah.
When I just look at those and how that went down, it was over. I'm like, why wasn't I included on that list? Why didn't somebody reach out to me? But maybe they didn't reach out to anybody. Maybe it was all anglers reaching out on the other side. And that very well may be.
There was a lot of politicking. Like there was
I did zero.
The squeaky wheel got the grease.
Yeah, and I'm not a politician.
And I'll be honest, that list, those 10 anglers that got that opportunity, I don't think it was ever on like standings. They've won this, and this. It was kind of just like, I think younger guys had an advantage on it. You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, let's be honest.
Futures. Yeah. Bright futures. No, I realize all that. And I thought about all that. And I thought they were all fair. I didn't think any of them were unjust. I didn't think that at all. I was just like, hell, I spent 6 years on the Elite Series there. And I've done some stuff here. Why am I not included on this? But at the time when it all went down, I don't know if I wouldn't have said no, because I kind of forget exactly how that time frame was, but that was before the purchase. You see what I'm saying? And I was totally had my head in the sand that was going to happen. Like I thought everything was going to stay status quo.
It was at least a full season before the purchase, because I remember for a long time there was, FLW's not going to be touched. Like I remember there was a brief moment in time where people were like, whew, thank God I'm FLW because I'm not involved in any of this crap.
Right. But like I said, at the end of that, I had to make some choices, and I reached out to. I learned pretty quick. I mean, by that time I'm over 40 years old, so I'm like, I'm not talking to any anglers about this. I sit and thought, because I went out and fished I'll never forget this. I went out and fished the U.S. Open, something I've always wanted to try to win. I fished it twice now, and I really enjoy that event out there. I was coming back from Lake Mead, and I got this really long drive back to Oklahoma, and all this has happened. Mike McClellan and I were actually rooming together out there, and he's an owner of MLF. And so I've had it in my ear all week, you need to, everybody's different opinions. And I'm like, I'm cutting myself away from all the fishermen, no matter how good of friends of mine they are. And I got to make a list of people that I can talk to. So I did. I thought of 3 people inside the industry. One was a business owner at Falcon, John Beckwith. One was Mike Valster, who owns a sales group.
Yeah.
And there was one more. I don't know. But anyway, all 3 of them. Russell Cecil. How could I forget that? Also owns a sales group down in Texas.
Yeah.
Very connected to the industry, right? These are all big ICAST guys. I need to know what direction I need to go. What do I need to do? And they were all, Bass. You need to go to the opens, and that's where you need to head. And these are what we see and why we think that. And dude, to this day, I owe 3 of those men a thank you, because, they gave me the confidence to move on. And Valster, for example, was, he tied into Big Bite and a lot of companies that I worked with. And he told me, he promised me, he said, get in there and get out, but we'll keep paying you. So wonderful. Super excited to have the opportunity. Now, at the end of this year, I guarantee you, if I had to make it, it'd have probably been off with my head, and I wouldn't blame them, but it was a struggle, and I knew it was going to be. I knew the opens what they were, Dave. I did. I'd fished enough tournaments. I knew what that was going to be, and I knew that I was not a very good points angler, which is a very scary thing.
Did you have to change the way you fished at all to become a better points angler to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, it took me 3 years to figure it out. Absolutely. But I think I finished 7th or something like that in the overall and first in the points in the central. So yeah, I figured it out, but it took me 3 damn years to figure it out. Yeah. I can remember starting the beginning of this year in Florida, and I had horrendous practice at Toho. Hadn't caught anything. I tried. I'd push the envelope like every place I know on Kissimmee, and that they're going to come and spawn first. And by the end of it, I remember I told Andrew Upshaw, he and I were in the hotel room together, and I was like, dude, tomorrow morning I'm going up there and they're going to call my boat number and I'm dropping my trolling motor. And I'm not leaving that little hole up there at the north end, like somewhere in that north end. I'm not going south of those islands, not a island. I'm staying in that north end, and I'm going to fish whatever's in front of me and looks productive, because I can't keep forcing the issue the way I want to. I just need to get bites, because like 60th place sounds phenomenal to start the year. And that's exactly what happened. But I salvaged it.
And now you get to kick off your Elite Series career on a body of water that you won your first FLW event. Mm-hmm. That's got to have, I mean, to me, like if I'm writing a movie, that's where you go. That's where it happens.
God, can you imagine if lightning could strike twice? Because I mean, that's really the reality of what would have to happen. But man, wouldn't that be a good story? First one back. Yeah. On the same lake. First one then, first one now. It wasn't even that long ago. That was in 2016.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. That'd be great. I don't expect that to happen, but I would love for that to happen. Wouldn't we all?
Yeah. And
Swindle may choke me if that happens. He literally may get on stage and choke me if that happens.
Why do you think Swindle hasn't won?
I have no idea.
The only thing I can come up with, and I've said this several times, I just think that in some weird way, for Gerald Swindle to be the person that he is in this industry, to be the PMA guy, to promote positive mental, it's stronger. His message is stronger because of his hurdles. Just like I feel like, to me, that's the most important thing about fishing. That's why everyone was so excited to see Christy win, because we got to see him lose.
Yeah.
And I think that's why everyone will be so excited when you win, because of stories like you just told me. You know what I mean? Like there was so many, you hit so many forks in the road. At some points, there must have been voices in your head screaming like, get off the freaking road.
I've had them many times. I've had them many times. But dude, I'm like everybody else. I'm made up with it. It's in my soul. I love it. Yeah. Like there's no replacing it. It's what drives me. And I love the feel of a bite.
Yeah. I think that's why you'll hear anglers, all groups of anglers say things like, oh, he's one of us, or that person there is one of us. And I've always wondered, like, what does one of us mean? But I think when you really think about it, I mean, if you want to be a pro football player, there's a bajillion kids that want to be a pro football player. That's an easy dream. But fishing, for people like myself, yourself, and anybody in this industry, at some point in our life, we figured out that this isn't something we want to do. It's something we have to do, almost in a way. And I feel like, when you told the story about the Bill Dance picture, I had a freaking picture of Hank Parker with the classic trophy over his head in my locker in high school.
Yeah.
But we're a group of weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an outsider kind of sport, but when we all come together, I think it's like all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's other weirdos like me.
There's more just like me. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. There's a bunch of us, and that's what keeps us all going. But we definitely all have the same disease.
Yeah. And at times I'm sure it does feel like a disease. So one of the things you just brought up a few minutes ago that I do want to follow back on, because nobody really talks about it, but you talked about your interaction with Skeet on the water, and that's the only kind of debate you've had on the water in your competition. The mental part of this game, it's a big, and what I mean is not so much trash talking, but the intimidation, the getting inside somebody's head. Was that something that you've experienced quite a bit? Like,
no, I don't think it. I think the older guys, and I'm not even including Skeet and the older guys, but like Biffle, right? Denny Brower, those guys. I think that in their era, I think it worked to bully people. I think they could push people out of shallow water areas and keep them to themselves, which meant more fish. I think they both agree with me on that. I know them both pretty well, and they're both great guys, but I think that intimidation factor they used to their advantage to bully guys out. And I think it worked, but it doesn't work in this era the same way. I'll tell the Skeet story. I don't mind telling it at all. It's a good story, because I didn't figure out exactly what happened, because I lost myself in the moment. And it wasn't until I was driving home that I was like watching him on day 4, and he's winning the tournament. And I was like, that's what he was doing. I would love to ask him this. He probably doesn't even remember it. And maybe I'm giving him more credit than he deserves. He might laugh and say that. I will say this before I tell a story. Skeet has always been, to me personally, there's some superstars in the sport, right? And he is definitely one of them. He is one of the very level, grounded, always polite to me, always generous, always thoughtful. Like he was always very good to me. I always liked him. Of the superstars, he was definitely one of my more favorite ones. Not much arrogance to him. He was a good dude. Now, with that being said, this was somewhere around 2009 or 10, and we had a tournament at Guntersville. It was a summertime event, ledge fishing. And by this point, I'd kind of started figuring out the TVA deal and had it going. I had a little place down by Van Dam where I'd started every morning. This was day 2 of the tournament. And then I had a place on up there by Goose Pond where like there was a bunch of guys lined up on that river channel. Bobby Lane was catching them real good right at the south end of it. And then there was a group of about 4 or 5 guys. But then as you went on up, there was an area up there that nobody was. And I had found a school up there and I pulled up on it on day 2 at like 12:30. And I mean, it was on. It was every cast, and they were big ones. And I catch like, I don't know that I caught it all there, but the majority of it came from there. And when I get to weigh in, I've got like 26 or 27 pounds. You know, this was a big bag. Now,
Yeah.
it was in the top 2 or 3 bags of the day. Now, this is my afterthought. Okay. As I'm in that bag line, Skeet is in the bag line with me, and he's got like 29. And he's already leading the event before he caught this 29-pound bag. And so we're talking, you know, and he's like, damn, Hallman, that's a big bag. And, you know, we're chit-chatting and stuff. And I had seen him that day. I'd seen him twice. Both times I saw him, so if you're going upriver, he's on the right-hand side. Both times I saw him. And both times I saw him, he was in the same area on the right-hand side. Never saw him on the left at all. Not in that flotilla with Bobby Lane all the way up to me. Never saw him. He was always across the river and down the river. Day 3 comes. I start on my little place down by Takeoff and I fish around. And about 12 o'clock, I'm like, hey, I don't want to miss that window. If they're going to bite at 12:30, I want to be there. So I run up. And as I run up, I pass Skeet over on the right where I'd seen him for 2 days. Bobby Lane, the whole flotilla. And I run right up there to my spot. And I stop about 100 yards shy. And I'm cranking and I'm going down it. And I hadn't been there 3 casts, and I hear a boat running hard. It's Skeet, and he comes right up, comes off pad, you know, just like right next to me. Boats are boat rail to boat rail, and he's pissed that I'm fishing here. He's like, "Hey, you hadn't been here," and I'm like, "Yeah, I have. I've been here. This is my 3rd day here, you know." And he's like, "No, I haven't seen you here. You haven't been here at all. You don't." And I forget the way he goes off about it, but I'm standing up for myself at this point. I'm like, look, dude, I've been here for 3 days. That school of fish is about 50 yards right in front of me, and you're not pulling in there and throwing on them. You go the hell on. And he leaves. I pull up there, and guess what? 50 yards. Dink, 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 dink. Catch him, right? Not as big as the first day, but caught him pretty good. I end up finishing the event. This is on day 3. Come in, and I don't know where I finished, you know, somewhere in the top 25, but not the top 10 to go in the last day. And it had me all puzzled, like, you know, I'm feeling like I was attacked and like, why has he been here? I was thinking all this stuff. How could I have been fishing the same place he was and never saw him there? Because I'd seen him. That yellow boat sticks out.
Yeah.
And he was always on the other side of the river. The next day when I'm driving home and he's crushing them again on TV, I'm thinking to myself as he's fishing that spot, because he went over there and fished that spot on TV on live. I'm thinking that was a strategy deal. He 100% already had 27 or 28 pounds in the boat that morning. He knows he needs more fish for day 4. Here goes Hallman up the river, and I know he caught him yesterday. He pulls in next to me, and then I just told him they're 50 yards in front of me. And
Gave him the exact.
All he's got to do the next day is pull right in where he pulled out, put his trolling motor down, start casting, and boom, 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 boom. Now, was he that mentally savvy? That's That's strong if he is.
Yeah. And I honestly, it's weird. People, obviously you want things to be, it's competition. You know what I mean? In every other sport, it's celebrated. The person who finishes the hit, the person but for whatever reason in pro fishing, people are like, oh yeah, you can't. Do you think if that is exactly what Skeet did, do you think in your head, is that wrong or is that just?
Well, in my mind, I couldn't reason it on the water. Like I thought I had, like somehow we're having this confrontation and I don't know how. It wasn't until I was driving home and then it hit me, dude, if you had 20, because whatever he weighed in that day, 27, 28, a big bag. If he'd have caught that at 9:00 in the morning, he's already, your wheels are already spinning on day 4 and you're thinking, what else have I got? Where else can I go? And then here comes Hallman up the river, who you just saw his bag yesterday. If he doesn't make the cut, but hell, how do you even know if it's one of those places or not? But it was the spot. I don't know. As good as that spot was, maybe he was fishing it and we just had never seen each other there at the same time. And that may be his answer. That's why I said I'd like to have him on this podcast right now. Either A, he won't even remember it, or B, he knows exactly and it was a spot he was fishing, or C, he really was playing that good of a mental game. I'll tell you what, if he was playing that good of a mental game, he is on a whole nother level for sure.
I think it happens. And I think even if it's not as thought through as you think, but it's like, by going up and saying, what are you doing here? You're also, even if you make the top 10, now you got a green light to be like, hey, he's going to be, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, only Skeet knows, but
yeah,
you see that all the time where people will roll up on somebody and be like, you weren't here, but the day before. And they say, yes, I was. Well, I didn't see you here. Well, now you know that, hey,
I would never do that though,
go back.
If it was a place that I hadn't been. Like I said, maybe I'm giving too much credit to it. It very well may have been a place that we were both fishing and we just hadn't seen each other there. And it took 3 days to finally run into each other. But I don't know how, because I promise you on day 2, when I caught that bag off of it, I know that I passed him coming up the river and he's about a mile down the river on the other side of the entire other side of the river.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that happened, but anyway, the trials and errors of pro bass fishing, I guess.
Dude, I've seen some stuff on the water that, and Kevin really never even admits to it. He just gives me like his signature wink every once in a while. But the last year I didn't work for Bass at the Classic. I was covering the Classic for doing these TwitVid things that I was doing at the time. And that's when it was in, that's when they were all in that one, where was it? I'm trying to remember. Was it Lay Lake? When they were all in the same, it was like a golf tournament. Everybody was fishing in that one area. You know what I mean? But they couldn't see each other, but they were all as close. So you could hear like flotillas and stuff. So I obviously start that morning. I'm going to follow KVD and I'm up on the bridge with everyone and I watch KVD. A few minutes into it, he catches, a 4-pounder. And that's when Creek got second to him.
Yep.
And there's a mental battle right there between those two. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But so Kevin catches a 3.5, 4-pounder. Everybody on the bridge and all the flotilla
screaming.
They scream. And that, he goes back to fishing. And I'm thinking the whole time, oh, Creek's got to hear that up there. And you would hear other people, Ike was in there. Ike's flotilla kind of went off at one point. But I just kept thinking about Creek because all the pressure was on Creek, in that day. Well, he's fishing for another few minutes. He does not catch another bass. But he looks at the bridge and he goes, and they all go, wow. He did it like 3 more times before he actually caught another bass. But you can imagine if you're Creek that whole time, you're like just the
100%,
feels on your shoulders. I think that kind of stuff is genius, it's probably maybe not if you're Jeff Creek, but it is. I think we don't talk about it in fishing because of, for whatever reason, you know what I mean? Like people think that it's a different, but you watch football, you watch NASCAR, you watch that Formula One documentary. I don't know if you've watched that, but some of the stuff that happens in that, is mind blowing. Like, you got crew chiefs who literally protest teams knowing that they're going to lose the protest, but I'm going to make that guy waste 4 hours of time proving that they're not cheating and get his mind all right. It happens in every sport, but in fishing, we kind of try to keep it to a higher level or something.
Yeah. And I'm probably wired more like that too. Cause to me, like the racing guys, I mean, dude, they're all borderline cheating.
Yeah.
I've heard one of the, maybe one of the guys on here, Fighter, or somebody said the guys that read the rules are the guys cheating. And
yeah, that is Fighter.
I agree with that statement a lot. There's a lot of truth in that statement. And if you don't understand what we're talking about there, it's guys looking for the gray. They're looking for the places where this rule doesn't exactly say this. Dude, you're just looking for a damn place to cheat. You know what I mean? But I understand life's not black and white, and I'm a black and white guy. I like to see it in black and white. And I know it's not. Listen, I'm married to an attorney. They go to school and train them to live in the gray. That's how they operate. So, but me, I like right and wrong. I like the good guy in the white hat, the bad guy in the black cowboy hat.
Yeah. So what's the ultimate goal?
My ultimate goal, this is my dream scenario. I do know this. I don't want to do this until I'm 60. I don't want to be fishing team or pro tournaments, traveling the country at 60 years old. I want to do this I'm 48 right now, 10 more years, 7, 8 years. I would like to win a couple of blue trophies in that time frame, and I'd like a shot at the Classic. If I could win a couple of blue trophies and had a shot at winning the Classic, Dave, I might take my jersey off and drop it on that floor and never fish another tournament the rest of my life. That's the truth.
Wow. You think you really could do that? Like, to say that now is one thing.
Yeah.
But let's say, along the way you win a couple of blue trophies. Then you make a few classics, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're about to win the Bassmaster Classic. Do you really think you could walk away?
Man, I know the other things I really want to do in my life, and it's spend time with my wife in retirement. And we would really like to go down to the coast. I'd like to be down. She and I both would like to go down to the Texas coast, all the way down south, Corpus Christi, Port Aransas. I can get up real easy and go catch a couple of redfish and come back at 11 o'clock and put them on a grill and have a beer and enjoy spending time with her and the kids and the family. Of course, they're going to be grown by then, but because I've got 4 now, not even 3. We've added another so I've got a 7-year-old in the house. But I've got other things that I want to do in life, and I don't want to be a tournament fisherman. I've done that most of my life. I've traveled around. I've been to the best lakes in the country. I've competed against the very best fishermen in the world. Many, many of them, I call them my very good friends. And I've been very blessed in that aspect. Got to work with guys like yourself. I'm looking very forward to this opportunity again. And all you people at Bass, and there's a lot of new people there. And, this is what I love and what I want to do, but it's not what I want to do as an old man.
If you had to break it up in percentages, how much of this goal, this drive, is being driven by, in your heart, just you, nobody else matters, it's just you want to accomplish it, and how much of it is to show the world that, man, I can do this?
It's 110% me. It's from the dream of when I was little. I started on this. It's been hard. I want to finish it. I want to be able to say I did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be able to say I did it. And I don't want my name to be in the also rans. You know what I mean? There's a lot of also rans in every sport, and there's nothing wrong with it. We all got to have, Van Dam's got to have a lot of people to beat to be Van Dam. And I'm never going to be Van Dam. But dude, if I could get a couple of blue trophies to go with those 2 black ones behind me, and possibly a classic trophy, there isn't very many men walking this planet with those kind of hardware around. And it's for me. It's not for anything else. It's for me. It's what makes me feel good when I walk in at the end of the day, that I didn't waste all that time away from my children and my family. Because, dude, we've made a lot of sacrifices to do this for a living. A lot. We miss a lot. You know all about it.
Yeah. Too much.
Yep.
Do you think, I mean, while you're saying that, I'm just like, do you even realize how rare it is? Like, the world is full of people who took a shot. and they sit in a rocking chair somewhere, Port Aransas or some beautiful place that if they're lucky enough to go and retire, and they look back as maybe as bitter as you were in 2011. They blame Bass never gave me the love. This never happened. I never played the game. But for you to overcome as much as you've overcome to be where you are today, I mean, I'd say that puts you in a very, very rare group of humans on Earth.
I have a very, very rare family, rare wife, rare children. Like I've got a rare family, and they've been behind me the whole way, and they've kept me going. Like I said, she said, don't sell that boat. Just shut the garage.
That's very rare because, I mean, just let us know in the comments how many of you have been told to sell your boat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I don't know that I'll accomplish all those things at all. I may finish 100th in the points the first 2 years back, because I realized that, you know, that mountain that I had to climb through the opens. And I'm honest about this, dude. That's the hardest gauntlet that I've ever gone through for bass fishing. But I'm walking into another one. One of my very best friends sent me a text as soon as I qualified. His text said, I know you're happy that you climbed that mountain, but that ain't the mountain you set out to climb. There's another one bigger. And I was like, he's right. You know? So I don't know what'll happen. I may be kicked out in 2 years, and that's fine. But at least if I go down my way, doing as hard as I can, I'm going to go down with a smile on my face. Yeah. That's a new thing. And I don't know who I heard say it or if I thought of it on my own, but dude, you know this to be true. You've stood on that stage many times and seen many anglers. A man without a smile on his face catches few fish.
It's the truth. And you see it like you've seen it, you've lived it, but I watch it happen. And in the biggest pressure that you see in the Elite Series is never the guy who finishes second. It's the dude who literally knows that snowball is rolling, and 2 years a rookie gets. So your first year, you have a tough year. Well, you come back the second year, and it's really up to those first 2 or 3 events, because after the third event, if it's not going your way, you just see people stop talking. The anglers, like as the season gets down, the anglers stop talking to that person because it's almost like dead man walking. You know what I mean? It's just a weird. Yeah. It's just a wild thing. But I think what stands out to me for you, like you've said a few times, I'm not Kevin Van Dam. I'm not Skeet Reese.
I'm not.
You're not.
I fished enough. I know I'm not. I'm not. I'm not Jason. I wasn't Jason when we were all here in Oklahoma. I know how special those guys are. I've roomed with them. I've been in the boat with them. I've watched them fish. Dude, I got in the boat with Scott Martin to film a show here in Oklahoma. It didn't take me 1 hour. 1 hour. Dude, I fish with all kinds of people. Usually, like, it's a no-brainer. I'm a better fisherman than them. 1 hour with Scott. It didn't take that. And I was like, this dude's on a different level. Scott Martin is on a different level, period. I don't care what anybody says. Different level. Jason Christie, whole different level. Different level.
But I think you are too, in this way. Their way is a lot more evident in the way that, accomplished based. But dude, I don't know that, and maybe they could 10 times over, but I don't know that any of those anglers, and they don't know it because they haven't lived it. But like, if you look at Kevin Van Dam's career, he never had to overcome the obstacles that you did. You know what I mean? Literally his first tournament, I think he finished 194th. And the next year he won Angler of the Year. Yeah. And you know what I mean? Like there's,
so that has to make you. Here's a coin phrase that I think of from time to time. And I'm friends with Ike. I am. But I think of him and his most famous quote, screaming, never give up. And all I can think of is there he is, 24, 5 years old, wet behind the ears, screaming, never give up. And I'm thinking, dude, you don't have the first damn clue what you're screaming at that point, what giving up is. Like, come walk on my road for a while, see if you're still fishing. And I don't mean that in any negative way. But yeah.
And the ironic thing about that whole never give up line, and I think it's what, like, we all see the never give up from the outside. And I mean, if you read his book, he was about to give up. Like that was it. It was over. So he was. I think when Ike screamed that, And I've never asked him this. I should ask him this because I feel like never give up meant a lot more. Like almost he was realizing it while he was screaming it. You know what I mean? It wasn't just people think it outside. It's never give up fishing that day. He was literally this close to being like, I'm done with this sport.
Yeah. I'm like you. I'm a huge fan too. And I always have been of the sport. So like that book I've read every book that I thought, and I don't know why I just went blank for a second. I've read all those books, all of them. Why have I gone blank? Floridian, sight fisherman, Hall of Famer,
Shaw Grigsby. There you go.
I thought that his book was probably the best one that I'd ever read. The relationship with him and his father. There was a lot to that book, more than just fishing. But I thought it was incredible. When I was on the Elite Series, I made sure that I brought it, had him autograph it for me. Yeah. Awesome, dude. So,
Shaw's an incredible person to this day. I mean, I'm just amazed at him being able to be the person that he is today with everything he's got going on and has accomplished. And he just loves to fish.
But like I said, I've always been a huge fan. As much as I love fishing, I'm also a huge fan of the sport. So I follow everybody. I know quite a bit about them. I spent a lot of time this off season following up on a lot of guys I'm going to be competing against, just so I kind of know who they are, what their strengths are, what they like, how they think. You know, I've really paid a lot of attention to that because there's a lot of these guys that I don't know. And I know that there's been times in my career where this happens as you get older. When you're young, you know who everybody is, you know who every boat is, you know, and as you get older, you don't know anybody. You're like, you just know the 4 or 5 guys that you run around. Like, you don't know who people's boats are. And that aggravates me now, you know, because I look back and I'm like, I need to know who all that stuff is. I need to know it for competitive reasons, right? Not that you're going to go whole shot somebody, but if I'm in the area where first, second, third are, I don't want to have to figure that out on the third day. I'd like to know after day one, hey, that's a pretty good area. You probably ought to stay put in there, you know? But that comes with age, and I don't know why, Dave. I don't, but it does. And it happens to a lot of older anglers.
I think it's just because you have more stuff in your life. Like when you're young, it's all fishing. But now you have 4 kids, 4 birthdays, 4 the pressure of missing things, the pressure of games that you try to get back, like all of that. And you're just getting older, I guess. I don't know. It's
I just don't think they're as dialed in. I think that's what happens is they're not as dialed into their craft as they once were when they were young. That's all they studied. And then as they got older, I don't want to go down that route, but I was going to say part of what happened in all this changeover with everybody. There's a lot of guys that look at a lot of people and they're like, they don't know their name because they haven't been paying attention. And they all think, well, you know, I'm the greatest anglers of all time or whatever. And I'm thinking, dude, I've been competing against this bunch and that bunch and against y'all. And I'm telling you, you know, Dakota E-Bear is going to come whip your ass. And Dakota E-Bear is. I knew that a lot of those guys existed, you know. I was aware of the Johnstons, which a lot of people were, but I was aware of Gussie, and I fished against all those guys. I know how extremely talented and crafted they are, and they're all extremely good. So it's going to be a fun challenge coming back into the Elite Series because I'm pretty sure they're probably quite a bit better than the last time I fished against them.
When you mention these anglers that are standout, you fished with Scott Martin for an hour and you knew.
Yeah.
Is there a trait that they have, or is it just?
It's examples of things that happen on the water that don't normally happen, or that I don't catch, that they catch, that other guys would never. So the Jason story, Jason and I think we're down on, we won't even get into where we were because that won't matter because it's an Oklahoma deal. Neither one of us want to give that up.
All right.
But we had gotten back into a creek, and it was about this time of year. It was February, wintertime in Oklahoma. And we'd gotten back into a creek and we were fishing, and we were coming back out. We'd already fished our way in and we were coming back out. Both of us standing on the front deck, and he threw spinnerbait up in this little bend in the river creek, and he caught one. It was like a 10-incher, and we hadn't caught anything in a while. We hadn't had hardly any bites. And but it was like a 10-inch bass is all it was. And I didn't think much about it other than, hey, finally got a bite. And he said, I'll never forget, he said, if that one's there, there's a whole bunch of them there. And I was like, what? And he's like, dude, I guarantee it. He went on past, turned the boat around, put the spinner bait up, got in his rod box, pulled out a jerk bait, and went to slaying them. I was like, I just sit there and watched. I was like, how did you know that? And he's like, man, I've just seen it before, in that bend, it's a little deeper. He said, I didn't see him on the graph or anything. I had that feeling like if that one was there, there's a whole bunch there, which I get that, it's wintertime and they'd gotten a little deep and they were grouped up, but man, he just instantly, picked it up. Scott, story with him when I knew we were going to film, we just fished an FLW Tour event at Grand and I'd done pretty well in it. And he wanted to film with me in Oklahoma and he wanted to know where we could go. And I was like, let's go to Arbuckle. Arbuckle's where they catch 13 and 14 pounders. And so this buddy of mine, you know how the story works because you got a TV show. So you know exactly this story. Your buddy that's from the lake, that knows it, he's there the day before and he's like, dude, they're biting on every damn point. Doesn't matter. Just throw a jig up there. You catch them. You know the drill, right? You've heard this. And you know what happens when you show up the next day, right?
Yes. All too well.
No bites. And so I'm not sweating it because one of my best friends, Bronson's been down. He lives on the lake all the time. He's there every day. And he's like, dude, they're biting so good. Y'all will be able to make a show. No problem. Well, it's 9:00 in the morning and we hadn't had a bite. And Scott's kind of, because I'm not a TV guy. I don't know. And Scott's like, hey, dude, we really need to catch a couple of fish before the sun gets up because it looks bad on the show if we catch them all with high sun. Like, you got a really good spot we can go to? And I'm like, I got one spot that this is where I would go to if I had to catch one bass. So we go to it. It's a hump. It's got a brush pile on it. It's offshore deal. And we pull up there and this is 2019. So it's Panoptics. It's not Livescope. And we're up there and we're throwing at this brush pile and he's looking at it on Panoptics. And he's like, dude, I don't even see anything up there on this hump. And I'm like, I don't know. And he takes it like it's to the right where we're throwing. It's not a very big hump. And we're out in the middle of the lake. And he takes his trolling motor and he fans and he goes all the way out there to the middle of the lake on the left. And he goes, and I wasn't paying attention to what he's doing. I'm still firing up there at that pile. And he goes, you think those are bass? And I look up and he's looking down and I see two blobs sitting out over probably 50 foot of water, but they're 10 foot deep. And I was like, I don't know. And he reaches down, pulls the spinning rod out of the rod box with a wacky worm on it, hits him right on the head, and you can see the worm falling. And as soon as I see the worm, I'm sitting there thinking they're probably carp. And then I see one go, look up, and I was like, holy shit, they're bass. 5-pounder. He catches them both. And I was like, okay, he's on a different level. Just instantly I knew because I would never have spun out there and caught those fish. Now that was in 2019. I don't know that I would do it in 2023, but I got a lot better chance of that happening in 2023. But yeah, he was already dialed in.
I think it's not even, when you tell those stories, the stuff that I've seen, it's not even just what somebody says. It's the difference than when I'm like, I catch one and I'm like, well, let's go get a bunch more. Mm-hmm. But I'm hoping we're going to get a bunch more. Yeah. I've seen Kevin, I've seen Aaron, I've seen a lot like Jason, Chris, I've seen them make decisions. And the way they make the decision is so much faster, so much crisper, and so much more certain. Like when he said to you, if that one's there, there'll be a bunch more. Yeah. He wasn't just saying that and hoping. Right. He really believed in.
No, he knew. Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild. So how different are you today as an angler versus the last time you were here?
I knew this question was going to come up. I did. I thought about this one too. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day and I wanted to be able to answer this and not, because I don't want it to sound arrogant or anything like that. Because like I said, I may be out of there in 2 years and finish 100th in the points 2 years in a row. And that very well could happen. But like when I jumped off into the opens 3 years ago, right here, this is kind of how I equate it. I knew it was going to be a rough battle, and I knew that it might take me. I told my wife it might take 2 or 3 years to get this done, and it did. But I never, when they called boat numbers and I went to fish the opens, I never felt like I didn't belong or I couldn't compete at this level or that I couldn't accomplish my goals. My first time and anybody's first time would be this way, anybody's for the most part. Some guys probably, maybe not. Polinick, I remember his rookie year. I don't think he thought this way. He was pretty confident, but most people, most men would be a little bit hesitant. Do I belong here? Can I compete? I don't feel that way coming in on the Elite Series this year, and I definitely felt that in 06. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that with any kind of arrogance. Those guys may skull drag me across the entire United States, but I don't feel that way, and I won't feel that way no matter what. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably the biggest difference.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I think that over more and more, the more we talk, and I honestly believe it. You said, somebody with that smile on their face catches more fish, whatever way you want to spin it.
Yeah.
It is so true though. Like if you believe, well, Polnick has, from his first angler of the year, he had a line and it stands out to me to this day. He was like, I'll wake up some mornings and I just know I'm going to catch him.
Yeah.
He said, then I wake up other mornings and I know I'm not going to catch him. And he said, you know what? I'm right 95% of the time. And it's true. It's not because he doesn't think he's not going to catch him because he didn't find him or whatever. It's just like you need to be in the right space. And I think it's one of the things that makes tournament fishing even a little more evil than other sports. Like, if you take the pitcher hitter relationship, you got a young pitcher, he's making league minimum and he's against the best hitter in the league that's making $25 million.
Yeah.
Even a huge disparity between those two, but the dude on the mound money never comes into it. You know what I mean? He's still making more than 99% of the people he went to school with.
Yeah.
He's just focused on striking them out. But in fishing, it's that you start fishing for checks. You start, you know what I mean? It's not even fair almost in some ways.
We could talk for hours. Kevin said this once, and when I was on the Elite Series, and he may have even said it on camera, but they were basically getting to his top tens. And he's like, look, dude, over half this field are check chasers. And I know what he's talking about because I was chasing checks. And the majority of the guys that I talked to, and I guarantee you the Elite Series has not changed in this aspect. The talk of the town, I guess you guys don't have meetings anymore, so that's kind of changed since but you get the gist. At the meeting, the talk of the town was always, what's the cut going to be
weight
for 50th place, right? Is that not the talk of the town?
Yeah.
I promise you that was never Kevin's concern coming to a meeting or into a tournament, the least of his concern. That's the least of Jason's concerns, least of Polinick's concerns, Hackney's concerns. Those guys don't care. That's not what they're there for.
I've had a veteran pro who's accomplished everything there is to accomplish in the sport. And he says to me, one of the worst things that happened to tournament fishing in his mind is $10,000 for 50th place. He said, when they fished before that, it was a whole different mindset. He said, but as soon as that started being a thing, and as soon as that started being a marker that like, I'm successful if I'm here, he said, the anglers are different now. And he, that was his ultimate point. He's like, you're only really fishing in a lot of situations against 25% of the field because if you're fishing for 50th, so you're going to try to win every one, correct? No.
I'm going to take what I learned in the opens. I want to make the classic, just like everybody says. I'm going to have practices that I know that it's not going to happen this week. And I want to try to take Swindle and some of those guys' approaches where 60th place is where I'm trying to finish. That's my goal. Could I get to 60th, 65th, just anything that's not 80s or worse, right? Because no, definitely those are the mistakes that I've made my entire career. I think that was part of my road that was meant for me to take in the opens to learn that this late in my career, and I've learned it. And I'm not ashamed to hold a spinning rod if I have to get some bites. Now, it's not what I want to do. Look, man, there's some really cool things about the Elite Series this year. One, I would tell you, if you tell the guy, the experienced angler, you're telling me this is the worst thing ever happened, $10,000 checks, I tell him to come talk to me. Because if he walked 3 years of what I just walked, he'd kill for one of them damn $10,000 checks in the opens because they don't exist. So I'm all about the $10,000 checks. But I lost track on that. I was going to go down a great road. Where I've been and what I've been going through. This will be the smallest field that I've competed against in over a decade.
Wow.
Yeah. And I noticed that John Cruz had just done an article and he was talking about how big this field was going to be. You know, it's going to take up more places on the lake. And dude, I'm thinking we're going to the best lakes in the country. I've been on the worst lakes in the country at the worst times. We're going to some of the best lakes in the country at the best times, you know. Smallest field that I've ever competed against, giant fish. I'm not a northern guy. God, I wish I had your knowledge. I would love to have your knowledge and be able to fish this entire season, but at least we're going to the 3 of the very best smallmouth places in the entire country.
You know what my knowledge got me? I became a tournament MC.
Well, you're the best MC, so at least you got that covered.
Well, thank you. There's got to be a freedom too with, I mean, not only is the smallest field, but you've got nobody on the back deck trying to cast at the same fish you're trying to catch.
Another bonus. And, you know, I have fished my entire life. I've kind of always stayed in touch with the regional stuff. I've always dabbled in it and fished a lot here in Oklahoma and Texas. I've got some really good friends in Arkansas, Missouri. And so I've always dabbled in that. So I never really got out of touch of having co-anglers. I actually noticed, I told Jason this years and years ago when I was on the Elite Series and he was on the FLW. I had gone and fished a BFL or something at Grand in like 2010 or 11. I had a co-angler just start smoking on me. And I'd been in the Elite Series for 6 years without co-anglers. And I was like, dude, what is happening over here is that we are getting softer.
Yeah.
Where the FLW Tour guys had those dang professional co-anglers in the back of the boat that would show you how bad you sucked. And I was like, you guys are staying stronger. Those guys are keeping you on their toes. Dude, I still believe in this. Like, I know it doesn't exist now at any tour, at any level, but it made those guys stronger. So like when you saw that big movement over time where Ayler and all those guys were coming over, I was thinking, I already knew because I'd experienced both sides. I was like, them boys right there are coming to play because they've had that in the back of their boat. And that's a whole nother element that you have to learn to deal with.
It's funny because I always look at FLW and I've never thought about it from that angle, which I totally believe when you're saying it. But I look at FLW and I'm like, the team deals screwed a lot of those guys long term. Like if you look at it, not from competition, it's a great deal, but all those team deals. And if you go for not chasing sponsors for 15 years of your life because you're part of a team, if you look at, there's very few anglers that were bounded from that. You know what I mean? That built a big sponsorship base that anglers with their resume. So it's pretty wild when you look at stuff like that. But I'm excited to have you on the Elite Series, dude. I mean, I love watching. To me, what makes every victory special is the climb. It's the, you know, it's getting there.
Absolutely.
And I think what you probably downplay and have through this podcast is, dude, you're going to have a whole horde of people that look at you and they're like, man, he didn't give up on it. And I'm not, you know what I mean? There's a lot of, every weigh-in has somebody who is like, yeah, I used to fish the opens or I used to fish that and I stopped doing it because of this.
Yeah.
Dude, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch it go down.
We're going to have a lot of fun with it. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot of positives. I see a million positives in front of me. I'm really glad to be where I am in life and the opportunity to fish with the best guys in the world. Let's get it on. Don't beat on me too bad. Don't beat on me too bad.
Dude, I don't beat on anyone. I mean,
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the anglers. I hope they don't beat on me too bad.
I can't promise you that. They are. Here's the weird thing about the anglers with getting younger. I've got this weird theory too. Like, I'm like, it's almost everybody knows this generation's a little different. You know what I mean? Like when I was a little kid, if there was a fight happening down in the street, and I'm talking like little kids just fighting, and a parent or somebody who looked like a parent, somebody with a suit or something pulled over, we would all scatter. Right. Today's kids turn around and they're like, you can't do that to me. My dad, I'll sue you.
Right.
So I feel like you've got all these young guys that the testosterone is super high in them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're at the peak. They've got an advantage with electronics, but they also are missing that element of respect where, you know what I mean? Where you would have seen Denny Brower when you were first on the elites and been like, oh,
100%.
that's Denny Brower.
Yeah.
They're a group of assassins. Anybody going to intimidate you? You feel like, is there anyone you're like,
no, not a single one.
No,
not a single one.
Are you going to try and intimidate somebody?
No, I'm not that way. I'm not that way at all.
Neither is Jason Christie. But
you don't make it through as many years fishing as I have without a confrontation on the water. Like I don't even try to intimidate anyone. No, you know what I mean? Like that didn't happen by accident. There's probably a few that I probably should have, and that other people would have had problems with, but somehow I figured out a way to work it out.
Well, that seems to be your way. Somehow you figure out a way to do it, dude.
Just keep swinging that axe, and hopefully that tree will fall.
Well, I hope I'm there when it does to yell timber for you, because it's going to be pretty awesome. But thank you. Thanks for doing this, dude.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
It's weird because most of the time I do a podcast with somebody, I know them really well. You know what I mean? But I've enjoyed this one because not only did I not know you that well, but I got to learn about you, and it's going to be a fun year.
I'm a big fan. Like I told you, I listen to all your stuff. I'm not going to let you get off here until we talk football. And I know that I know that all the listeners hate anytime we talk about football.
God, they get so mad.
But dude, it's the Super Bowl and your team's in it.
But by the time this airs, the Super Bowl will be over, and I'll either be.
Are you going to air it before we start? Because I think, is it Super Bowl weekend? When will it air? Will it air after?
It airs on the Wednesday before we start the Elite Series, which is the Wednesday after the Super Bowl.
Okay.
So either right now I'm like styling and profiling because Patrick Mahomes and the mighty Kansas City Chiefs took out the Eagles, or I am being trash talked by probably the most aggressive and angry sports fans on earth, the Eagles fans. Who do you think? Throw it on the line.
I'm not I mean, I watch NFL some. I'm a diehard college football fan. So we're the total opposite. Like, I know you're not a big college guy, but you're a huge NFL guy. And I'm massive. Like, I know way too much about a bunch of 18-year-old kids I should know about football. So I kind of relate it all to how many Sooners are playing in the Super Bowl. And there's actually quite a few Oklahoma Sooners playing the Super Bowl. So, you know, I can go either way. I don't dislike Mahomes, but he did come from Taco Tech. Down here, which I do not care for, but I have to thank Mahomes, because if Mahomes wasn't at Taco Tech, we probably never get our quarterback from there. I just went blank again. I do this all the time. Baker Mayfield, because he was there at Taco Tech with them, and then they wouldn't even give Baker a scholarship after playing for winning 9 games for him as a freshman. So he left, and we got him. So I appreciate Mahomes for that. But you got your center. Your center's from Oklahoma. He grew up in Shawnee.
Yeah, I knew that.
He's one of the best centers in the NFL, if not the best. I think your left tackle is from Oklahoma. So you got quite a few Sooners on Kansas City, and I'm missing one or two. And then the Eagles also. And then we fight over, Alabama fans and Oklahoma fans, we fight over the Eagles quarterback of where he's really from. But either way, Jalen's going to be a lot for you to deal with, because the problem in playoff games, dude, is any NFL game, especially playoff games, inside the red zone, it's hard to score. And the Eagles have a good defense, and then you put Jalen at quarterback inside the red zone, and they've got so many options. They're harder to stop than any team in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's dangerous.
I think it all comes down to, I mean, number one, if the Chiefs don't get healthy, I mean, we had nobody like that to get here. I was amazed that, you know, that there's so many injured players, so they have to get healthy. We're facing a team that had 70 sacks in the regular season, which is number 2 to the 1985 Chicago Bears, who had 72 sacks, to let you know how scary that is. We have a quarterback who is in a physical condition that he probably doesn't want to get sacked very much.
No.
So, but here's what I will say, dude. I honestly, I really like the Eagles. Like the Eagles, like I don't know if it was the tournament we did there, but I fell in love with, like, it was the closest it's the closest in history that fishing never got to wrestling. I mean, the way that crowd was when we went to Philadelphia. So I met a lot of people, and And Jason Kelsey's on there.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of him and his brother's podcast. So I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl. The Andy Reid story, there's a lot of stuff, but I just really hope that, if the Chiefs lost, I'm going to be getting really trash talked in the comments right now.
Well, as long as you've got Patrick Mahomes, you've got a fighting chance.
God, do we ever? He is,
yeah.
I call him St. Patrick because he is the patron saint of the like, dude, I was a little kid. I liked Joe Montana. This is how I became a Chiefs fan. I liked Joe Montana, right? And that was right when Joe Montana was kind of finishing his reign. But like a lot of little kids, you go for the guy who's winning, So he's finishing his reign with the Niners. Well, I followed Joe to the Chiefs, and I never left. And I seemed like a really bad decision for a really long time. But thank God, St. Patrick has made it in a whole different world. So it sounds like your family's home now.
My 18-year-old daughter, senior in high school, walked in with her big mannequin that she's doing for her art class, that she's making dresses and outlandish outfits, stuff that girls would have never worn to school in our day, but today it's okay.
We've talked fishing, we've talked football, and now we've talked fashion.
We got it all covered.
Yeah, we do. It's going to be fun to watch go down. Go Chiefs, and I'll see you all season long.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it, Dave. Thanks so much for having me on, Bub. I appreciate it.
No, dude, let's do this more because I honestly feel like, we got into some topics, but we can keep going.
We could. Easy.
There you have it, Bradley Hallman. And if that's not an inspirational story, I don't know what is. He literally thought he was done with tournament fishing, and here he is right back at the Bassmaster Elite Series. And I wish him luck. I think he's going to have a great season. I think his head's in the right place. Everything is timing, and I think the time is right for Bradley Hallman. But speaking of timing, the timing of this interview was a little off. So if you were confused by the fact that he was talking about a Super Bowl that already happened, we recorded the interview section of this show before the Super Bowl. With that in mind, it is time to officially talk about the Super Bowl, and what a freaking Super Bowl it was. High scoring, high test, just the battle that you always want. A lot of times goes to Super Bowl and it gets a lot more defensive. You get a lot more nerves or whatever that plays into it. But man, it was a shootout the whole way through. And, all season long, people have taken great pride in chirping me about the Chiefs. For 4 months, the Buffalo Bills were going to be Super Bowl champions. It didn't matter. The Bills are going to win it. The Bills are going to win it. That didn't happen. That's why they play the games. Then after that, it was, look out, because here comes Joe Burrow, the guy that you can never beat. He's going to come down and make Arrowhead Burrowhead. I said to you guys, that's why they play the games. It didn't happen. The Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, and they play against a team that I honestly really like. A city that I really like. The greatest weigh-in crowd for an Elite Series event is Philadelphia. The noise that the people in Philadelphia made, it was the closest fishing's ever been to professional wrestling, which I really liked. But I also really like their team. I love Jason Kelsey. I love Hurts. I think that they're just a great team, and they'll be a great team for a long time. But their fans are relentless. And some of the things that you guys said to me the last week in comments and direct messages and stuff, and I responded always with the one thing. That's why they play the games. And even at halftime of that game, while people were fixated on a baby bumped Riri, which I didn't even remember. That's how much of a disconnected fan I am. I can't tell you whether the halftime show was any good or not. Let me know in the comments, because I was pacing, praying, fingers, toes, everything crossed that Patrick Mahomes could come back, because it looked like that injury would have shut him down for the game. Lord knows what they did to him in that locker room, but thank God they have a good medical staff, because he came out, and not only did he come out, the entire Kansas City Chiefs came out, and dominated the second half of that game. And now they are not one, not two, but a 3-time Super Bowl champion. And man, that was a team performance. And but it starts with QB1. And I thank the good Lord and everybody who made it possible for St. Patrick, the patron saint of the Kansas City Chiefs, to come into our life and turn our franchise around. But if you look at all of the things that people said, they said at the beginning of the season, the Chiefs are done. They traded away Tyreek Hill. They're fools. Sky Moore, Isaiah Pacheco, so many names. They're all rookies. That's who won the Super Bowl. It was a full team appearance, victory, and man, it was freaking awesome. And I get it. There's a bunch of you who cheer for other teams, and that's cool. There's some of you don't even like football, and you're allowed to do that too. That's why this segment's at the very end of it. But I feel your hate. I get it. I mean, I know exactly what you're going through. Trust me. I hated the Patriots for years. But now, you're hating on Mahomes. And so you should. I mean, his career has just started. He is already a 2-time MVP, a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and he's made it to 3 of them. You might hate him, but I tell you what, I love him. I love that man, Patrick Mahomes, and I loved this year's Super Bowl. And I'm going to tell you, the Eagles ain't going anywhere. We're going to be battling for years to come. The Bengals ain't going anywhere. The Bills ain't going anywhere. There's a lot of great teams right now. If you're a football fan, it is a great, great time. And it might affect my job, to be honest. I mean, I'm probably showing up in Florida this week with a little raspier voice than I probably should have, but it wasn't my fault. It's the Chiefs' fault. And it was glorious. And so are you guys for watching this and putting up with my tomfoolery. Oh, I'll address the call. I mean, here's what I would say. I said it before. Refs have an incredibly tough job. We don't do a lot of things to make it easier on them. There was some bad calls in that game. The holding call at the end there, it was definitely holding. I mean, the player admitted that it was holding. Did it have to happen at that time? I can feel your pain on that. You know, you think with less than 2 minutes to go in the game that that's not going to be called, but you also can't just cheat and hope that it's not going to be called. So I'm sure that pisses off some of you, and some of you say the NFL, they just love Mahomes, they love the Chiefs. And if they do, I'm thankful for it. Because trust me, for a lot of years, they didn't love us. And that being said, if you look at the Eagles' schedule, nobody had an easier route to the Super Bowl. Their regular season schedule, and then their playoff schedule. I mean, so if the NFL, if there is some tomfoolery going on, if the NFL loves anybody, I'd say they love the Eagles too. But it sucks. I mean, it's like a tournament, man. You get 2 finalists and one's going to lose. I mean, I could only imagine what it was like for Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce. You know, how weird is that? You know, you're consoling and congratulating at the same time. But that's why they play the games. Speaking of games, come see me in Okeechobee, unless you're full of hate and vinegar, and then relax, have a beverage, and then come see me. I'll see you next week. And Bob Cobb, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?